Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem, welcome back to today's Daf Yomi, Rosh HaShanna Daf Yud. We begin on Tes Amud Beis, 4 lines from the bottom of the Amud. Now the Mishnah told us that Echad B'Tishrei is considered Rosh HaShanna L'Natiyah, pertaining to years of Erla, something planted before Echad B'Tishrei. Come Echad B'Tishrei, the first year is up. That counts as year number 1, pertaining to the 3 years of Erla, during which the fruit are Asur Ba'achilam. After the first 3 years comes Nataravai, the 4th year, in which case the fruit either need to be taken to Yerushalayim or redeemed if they're outside Yerushalayim. Now, how close to Rosh Hashanah can you plant that tree and have that time period considered as your first year? Says the Gemara 4 lines from the bottom, Tanu Rabbanan, Echad Hanotea, whether one plants a fruit tree, Echad Hamavrich, or he bends a branch downward into the earth, where it takes root, and he comes out from the other side, and that turns into its own tree. It's called Mavrich, Miloshen Berech, like a knee that bends. Another form of planting. Vechad HaMarkiv, or one who grafts, takes a successful fruit tree branch and grafts into an unsuccessful fruit tree. That's just another form of creating a sort of a new fruit tree. So if he does these things, Erev Shvius, the year going into Shemitah, the 6th year of the Shemitah cycle, Shloishim Yom Lifnei Rosh Hashanah, if he does this 30 days, at least 30 days before Echad B'Tishrei, which is Rosh HaShanna L'Natiyah, also Leishana, that counts as year number 1. So he's done with the first year of Erla. 30 days, that's considered enough to be considered like a year. Umutar l'kaimen b'shvius. Number 2, when it comes to Shemitah, you can hold on to this fruit tree because the planting took place way before Shemitah, at least 30 days before Shemitah, which is enough time for it to be considered a pre-Shemitah planted tree. However, Pachas Mishleishim Yom Lifnei Rosh Hashanah, if you planted it less than 30 days to Rosh Hashanah, that's not enough time. Lo Yosel Shana, that does not count as year number 1 for Erla. V'asur l'kaimen b'shvius, and likewise, he cannot hold on to this fruit tree on Shvius. It's as though it was planted in the Shemitah territory. Rashi will bring the halacha that we learned yesterday. Tosefes Shvius is connected to Shvius as well. It's too close to Shemitah, and therefore he has to get rid of that tree. Says Rashi, 8 lines from the bottom. Also Leishana. So if you planted a minimum of 30 days before Rosh Hashanah, that section, that time period of 30 days, counts like a year. Also Leishana, Leminyan Shnei Yarla. So from there till Tishrei is considered year 1 of his 3 years of Erla. The Gemara is assuming because 30 days counts like a year. A year is comprised of 12 months. Once you experience 1 month out of those 12, you've already experienced that year somewhat. You've got, you had a good taste of that year, and it counts halachically like a year. Pachas Mishleishim Yom, says Rashi, Lo Yosel Leishana. If it's less than 30 days, it doesn't count as a year. You have to wait until Ad Tishrei Haba, until the following Tishrei. Then you have a year. Im Eina Erev Shvius, of course, if it's not Erev Shvius, because otherwise, next year, it would be Shemitah. You would have a problem with the fact that it was planted on Shemitah. So here we're speaking about Erla, number 1. If it's planted at least 30 days before Rosh Hashanah, Echad B'Tishrei, that counts as year 1. V'im Erev Shviusi, now, if you planted it less than 30 days to Rosh Hashanah, and it happens to be the year going into Shemitah, also l'kaimai, you can't keep this tree. Mishum Tosefes Shvius. Shemesifim Mechol HaKodesh. We learned yesterday, you meant to add from Mechol to Kodesh. Shvius extends, gets advanced into Erev Shvius. So if it's 30 days before Shemitah, it doesn't relate to Shemitah. You have a full month between yourself and Shemitah. A full month is like its own independent entity. It's like a year on its own. It relates to Erev Shemitah and not to Shemitah. Whereas if it's within 30 days, too close to Shemitah, you're running into Tosefes Shemitah, in which case you cannot be Mekayim this tree. Continues the Gemara on top. Now, although we say that when it comes to a netiyah, a freshly planted sapling, fruit tree, Rosh HaShanna is determined by Echad B'Tishrei. So when it comes Echad B'Tishrei, it counts as year 1. And you would assume that the following Tishrei is year 2. And the third Tishrei would be time's up. No more Arla, right? Wrong. It says the Gemara Chiddush. Uperes netiyah zu asurin atesvav b'shvat. The fruit which will be produced by this young fruit tree are going to remain asur until Tu B'Shvat. Which means you have a tree planted here. 30 days later is Rosh HaShanna. That counts as year 1. Then we have the next Rosh HaShanna. So it's year 2. 2 years up. Then we have the next Rosh HaShanna. So you think the 3 years of Arla are up. First 30 days, from Rosh HaShanna to Rosh HaShanna, from second Rosh HaShanna to third Rosh HaShanna, you think Arla's over. Says the Brisa, no. The fruit remains asur until Tu B'Shvat, which is 4.5 months later. Uperes netiyah zu asurin ad tesvav b'shvat. Im la'arla arla. If it's still within the domain of arla, meaning it's that first Tu B'Shvat, so it still retains its arla status until Tu B'Shvat. V'im l'ravai, meaning the year after that, the fruit is considered ravai, right? You have 3 years of arla, in which case the fruit is forbidden completely. The 4th year, it's called ravai, ravi'i. You eat it in Yerushalayim, or you redeem it if it's outside Yerushalayim. So following that Tu B'Shvat, for the next year it's going to be ravai until the next Tu B'Shvat. And Rashi explains the reason for this. Why would you say it extends past Rosh HaShanna? If we say Rosh HaShanna, Echad B'Tishrei is really the starting point of the new year. Answers Rashi a novel pshat. He says like this. The Mishnah speaks about Echad B'Tishrei being Rosh HaShanna linetiyah. What is a netiyah? A young sapling. Not a fruit-producing entity. At that point, he relates to Echad B'Tishrei as his Rosh HaShanna, which is the Rosh HaShanna applied to all land-related halachis, Shemitah, Yovel. And likewise, when it comes to determining the years of Arla, that's because it's just a sapling and not a fruit-producing entity. But once it turns into a mature tree, it's producing fruit, says Rashi. Now, it transitioned. It's no longer regarded as a netiyah, a little plant, a sapling, like a vegetable, like grain, which relate to the growth cycle hinging around Echad B'Tishrei being Rosh Hashanah. No. A fruit tree works differently. The Gemara soon will bring a pasuk. Tosfos will explain based on the Gemara Daf Yud Daled. Has a different cycle. It runs according to the fruit-producing cycle, which is based around Tu B'Shvat, Rosh Hashanah Le'ilan. It's turned into a tree. So true, initially, when you planted it, when it was still a netiyah, a little grass, a little branch, a little plant, like a vegetable. So it related to the karka. It ran along the guidelines of halachas of karka. Shemitah, Yovel, Maser of Yerakos, Maser of grain, who relate to Echad B'Tishrei at the beginning of the calendar year. And therefore we say, if he planted it at least 30 days before that first Rosh HaShanna, come that Rosh HaShanna, Echad B'Tishrei, it counts as year 1. Because at that point, it's still related to the year, the annual cycle, which is ground related, karka related, which is determined by Echad B'Tishrei. But once it turns into a mature tree, it's producing fruit. It's an Ilan. Rosh Hashanah, the Ilan is Tu B'Shvat. It has to relate to a different cycle, to the fruit-producing cycle, which revolves around Tu B'Shvat. as we're going to see soon. So it's a great chiddush. The same plant. Initially, we treated it like a netiyah, in which case the Echad B'Tishrei determines the Rosh HaShanna. But then it transitions into a tree, in which case the fruit that is found on this tree is now going to have to wait until Tesvav B'Shvat for us to consider it to have completed the years of Arla. So again, just to illustrate it again, we have the netiyah planted here. 30 days later, you have Rosh Hashanah, Echad B'Tishrei. At this point, it's still a netiyah. Year's over. New year begins. So first year of Arla is up. But then, eventually, it starts producing fruit, and then it turns into an Ilan with new halachas. So now you have to wait from Rosh Hashanah to the second, gives it year 2. To the third Rosh Hashanah is year 3, but year 3 extends all the way till Tu B'Shvat. At this point, it's an Ilan. He has to wait until Tu B'Shvat for his year to be up. So that's the conclusion of Shnei Arla. A year later, Tu B'Shvat is the conclusion of the 4 years, which includes Neta Ravai as well. Says the Gemara, Manan and Mili, how do we know that a fruit tree has different halachas than grain, than vegetables? Amar Abchia bar Abba Amar Rabbi Yechanan. So they said it in the name of Rabbi Yechanan. Umatuba literally means they leaned it. It just means to say that some attributed this concept, Mishmei de Rabbi Yanai, they said it in the name of Rabbi Yanai. It comes from a pasuk, Amakra. The pasuk speaks about the fact that the first 3 years of that fruit tree, the fruit is asur, it's considered arla, and then the pasuk continues, Uba Shana Ravis. The fruit has kedusha. Uba Shana Chamishis. You're free to have the fruit. It's mutar b'achila. The fact that the pasuk added the vav, Uba Shana Ravis. 3 years are arla. Uba Shana Ravis. And then again, Uba Shana Chamishis, we have a drasha which says, at times, the Arla extends into the next year. You would think it's done and over with. No. At times it extends into something which appears like the 4th year already. No, but it's still Arla. And at times the halacha of Ravai extends into what appears to be the 5th year. No. It's still Ravai until Tu B'Shvat. Pa'amim shem Ravius, v'adayin asur m'shem Arla. Sometimes you would think, oh, 4th year has arrived. No, it still has the Arla status until Teshvav B'Shvat of that year. And likewise, at times you're already in the 5th year. You pass Rosh HaShanah. You think it's over. No, V'adayin Asura Mishum Ravai, it still retains its Ravai status. Now Tosfos explains based on the Gemara Daf Yudalid. Sure, we have this pasuk now that extends past Rosh Hashanah, but until which point? Why Shvat? Why Tu B'Shvat? The Gemara says because at that point, Yatsu Reiv Gishmei Shana, the majority of the rain season has passed, and Rashi there explains the seraph, the sap, the growing agents has already started growing, rising up into the trunk of the trees, and the tree has already gotten sort of its energy, which will propel it further and able to produce its fruit for the coming year. So at that point, we consider last year's growth cycle to have been completed, and the new cycle has begun. So it's based on the pasuk, which tells us that trees are treated differently, and the Chacham determined and established it to be totally in Tu B'Shvat based on the production habits of the trees. Okay. Now let's get back to the Brisa. You planted 30 days before Rosh Hashanah, that counts as a year. Leimad Likar Rab Meir. Shall we say this Brisa is not in line with Rab Meir's Shita? The Rab Meir, because according to Rab Meir, Ha'amah, didn't he tell us, Yom Echad B'Shana, Rosh Hashanah. You need not have 30 days to count as a year. Even experiencing 1 day out of a year can already count as a year. In this case, even planting it 1 day before Rosh Hashanah should be sufficient to count as year 1 of Arla. Look, the year is made up of days. Experiencing one element of that year, one building block, one day which forms a year, is sufficient to have experienced that year somewhat, and halachically, it can already count as though you have experienced that year. It should count as year one for Arla. Why do you need 30 days? Now, of course, Tosfos points out it's not a universal halacha. For instance, he says, bar mitzvah boy, he has to have a full 13 years. He brings several other examples. It's not something which is universally applied. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't, as we're going to see in the following brisa. For instance, when it comes to animal, ages of karbanis, we apply this concept. When it comes to Erla, we should do the same. The Sanya. Where do we find Rameir's Shita that one day counts as a year? We have three stages of the cow's development. We have the egel, the calf, ben bakar, a bit older, and the par, more mature. The egel is within a year old. So when you say ben shana, doesn't mean a year old, within the first year, from 0 to 1. Ben bakar, within 2 years old, and par, within 3 years old. Par ha'omar b'torah stam. What is the stam definition of the word par? Ben esrim v'arba'a chodesh v'yom echad. 24 months plus 1 day divrei Meir. Has to be considered within the third year. So 24 months and a day is already considered 3 years old, and it's right to be brought as a carbon whenever you need a par. Divrei Meir. So according to Reb Meir, even having experienced 1 day of that third year is sufficient to be considered like a shana. Rav Lezer Omer, he requires 30 days. Ben esrim v'arba'a chodesh v'lamed yom. It has to be 24 months plus 30 days old. Why? In order to have that third year, he has to have 30 days of that third year. Because the year consists of months. That's Rav Lezer's approach. It's made up of months. To have the year, you have to experience at least one of those months. Considered having tasted that year, so to speak, experienced that year. That counts as a year. According to Reb Meir, 1 day is enough. Shaya Reb Meir Omer, Reb Meir used to say, Kol makom shenemar egel b'torah stam. Whenever we find the term egel in the Torah, without an explanation, just the word egel, what is it referring to? Ben shana, an animal within the first year. Ben bakar means ben shtayim, within the second year. Par ben shalosh means within the third year. So he has to be considered a 3-year-old. In the Torah terms, 3-year-old means he is within the third year, past 2 into 3. How do you get that? Says Reb Meir has to be 24 months plus 1 day, because that additional day gives him enough of a taste of that third year. He's considered a ben shalish. Why? Yom echad b'shana chashav shana. Right? So according to Reb Meir, since the year is comprised of days, having 1 day gives you a taste, gives you an experience of that year. We count it as a year. When it comes to Erla, why do we need 30 days? As long as he plants it a day before Rosh HaShanna, that should be enough to count as year 1 of Erla. Answers the Gemara, Afilu te Reb Meir. The brisa can be following Reb Meir. Here it's different. Ki kama Reb Meir. Yom echad b'shana chashav shana. When does Reb Meir consider 1 day like a shana? B'soif shana. The Rasha says b'soif shanim, meaning at the end of the sequence. For instance, the animal. He already had 2 full years. This additional day attaches itself to the previous 2 years. It's the hashlama. It's a completion of a sequence, completion of a set. It's easier to consider a day and count it like a year because it's at the end of it's completing a set which is already there. Ava betchina shana or shanim, but when you're starting to reckon years, at the beginning of a calculation, you're starting up now. Loi, we're not going to consider 1 day like a year because you don't have anything to work with. You're starting up fresh. Therefore, when it comes to Erla, we're starting the Erla now. 1 day, even according to Reb Meir, cannot be counted like a year. So if he already has something going, he's just trying to complete it. Okay, 1 day, it's enough. to attach itself to the previous sequence of years to give you that completion, that conclusion. But to start with a year by just having a day, that doesn't work. Amar Rava, what do you mean? Just the opposite. V'lav kavachaymahu. Using a kavachaymer can prove things are just the opposite. If anything, it's in the reverse. Why? Because it's easier when you're starting up and you're leading into something important, as opposed to when you're done, you're completing, and that's it. It's at the end of the road. If anything, starting up is easier than concluding. I'll bring you a raya. Uma nida, since we find by a nida who sees dam on Sunday, she's tamei for the next 7 days, whether or not she saw dam throughout those 7 days. She's tamei for the entire set, shiva yimei nida. Now, what do we find by a nida? Uma nida she'ein tchilas hayom. Let's say she saw 7 days. The last day, she says, you know what? It's already part of the day through, part of the way through. Let's consider part of the day like the entire day. I've already experienced my 7 days. Let me become tahir now. Let me be toivel. That's it. We don't say that. The beginning of that last day doesn't work. We don't count it as the 7th day of her set until she finishes that full day and can be toivel that following night. This, of course, was in the time of the Chazal, meaning this was the Iker din Torah, that an Isha sees dam will be toivel after 7 days. Today we do it differently. Rashi brings the Gemara that we're machmer, consider every Re'iyah like a Ziva, which Shiva Nakim works according to different guidelines. But according to the set halacha, the Torah, an Isha sees dam on Sunday, she's tummy for 7 days, and she can't be toivel on the 7th day by saying, look, Miktzas Yom Kikuloi, I've already experienced part of that last day, I have 7 days behind me. No. The beginning of that last day doesn't work. It can't count at the end of her sequence. And still, what do we find? We do say Miktzas Hayom elsewhere by Anita to count as her 7 days. Seif Hayom Oila B'tchilasa. The end of the day will work in the beginning of her set, meaning, say she saw dam at the last portion of Sunday. She didn't see a whole day, just the last moment. Seif Hayom. It's oilala b'tchilasa. It's counted and considered like day 1 of her set. Miktzas Hayom Kikuloi. This is considered a day which is tamei, even though she only experienced tumah at the end of that day. It's like a Miktzas Hayom Kikuloi. Experiencing part of the day b'tumah gives the entire day a din of tumah. What do we see here? That tchila is easier than the end, than the seif. When she's starting the set, when she's being introduced to the nida system, we say Miktzas Hayom, since it's leading to a solid a sequence of days following that Miktzas, it works. It counts as a day, even though it didn't work the other way. It didn't work at the end of the set. Apparently, the tchila is easier than the end because it's leading into something solid, something absolute that has chashivas. And therefore, when it comes to us, Shana or Shanim, according to some gears, is Shanim Shim Echad Oila B'Seifa. When it comes to counting of years, such as by the animal, he wants to turn 3. We say, sure, no problem. You have 24 months behind you. 1 more day of the 3rd year counts as year 3. Shim Echad Oila B'Seifa. When it's at the end of the set, at the end of the calculation, 1 day is reckoned like a year. Then of course, certainly, of course, and of course, if it's at the beginning of a set, such as the years of Orla, you want it to count as year 1, of course, that 1 day should be counted as a year. When it's still at the beginning of the system, when it's leading into another 2 full years of Orla, of course it should work. So according to Reb Meir, why do we need to plan 30 days before Rosh HaShanna? 1 day should be enough to count as year 1 for the upcoming set of Shnei Arla. Okay, says the so what's the other option? If it's not Reb Meir, who is it? We have Shittas Rebbe Lezer in the Brisa. You need 30 days to be considered a year. Okay, let's explore. Is it going to work? So you need 30, and perhaps the brisa, which requires 30, is Rabbi Lezer. But it won't work. Because shloishim u'shloishim boi. You need 30 for the plant to take root, to get absorbed into the ground. And on top of that, you need another 30 so that it experiences that 30 days, which is considered a year, to count as year one of Arla. So 30 is never enough. You need 30 just to get it into the ground, to have it take root. Otherwise, Rashi says like a seed sitting in a bucket. It's not planted, it has to take root. It has to get absorbed into the ground. And then you can have 30 days to count as the first year of Arla. Shloishim u'shloishim boy. The Brisa doesn't require more than 30, so we're stuck. It's not Rav Meir, it's not Rav Lezer either. This non. What do we find? This concept that you need it to be rooted in the ground before you can even consider it. Time passed when it comes to Arla. Ein noitin, you can't plant a fruit tree. Vein mavrichin, that's the bending of the branch. Vein markivin, grafting. Erev shvius, pachas melamed yom. Lifnei Rosh HaShanna. If it's a year leading into shvius, make sure it's not less than 30 days before Rosh HaShanna. V'im nata, v'hivrich, v'hirkev yarkev. Yakar. If it was less than 30, you have to uproot it. So the shear is 30. Divrei Rabbi Lezer. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, kol harukava she'eina keletes b'gimel yamim. If you have some sort of grafting or planting which hasn't really taken hold, you're noticing that it's already 3 days and it was not koilet, it didn't really take root, it didn't really tack on properly. Shuva nikaletes, it's no longer going to be successful. So according to Rabbi Yehuda, it takes 3 days. It can take 3 days for the new plant to take root. Rabbi Yosef Shimon Omer shtei shabbos, it takes 2 weeks, 14 days. So you have 3 shitas, 3 days, 2 weeks. V'amar Nachman, Amar Rabba Ravoa. Livra Omer Lamed. You see, we had the first shita of Rabbi Lezer. Planted at a minimum of 30 days before Rosh HaShanah, you're safe. But, says Rav Nachman, he meant to know, it's not really 30. It's 30 plus 30. According to Rabbi Lezer, who spoke about 30, tzorach lamed u'shleishim. You need 30 just to get it to take root, to take hold. After that, u'shleishim, another 30 to experience the year, to count as year one. Likewise, according to Rabbi Yehuda, who spoke about 3 days to take root, tzorach shleisha. You need 3 days to take root, u'shleishim, another 30 to experience that first year of Arla, to experience the year of Erev Shvius, to be considered planted before Shvius. According to the Shita that spoke about 2 weeks, they meant 2 weeks to take root, on top of 30 days, which are considered a year. To take root, on top of that, u'shloishim yom, which are considered like a shana, and then it's considered to have been planted before Shemitah. So if that's the pshat in the Mishnah, which means that even according to Rabbi Lezer, who speaks about 30 days being counted as a year, of course, but on top of that you need 30 days for it to take root before you can even consider it, to have been planted as a viable tree, to count as year one of Arla. Why does the Brisa only require 30 days? Okay, let's switch tracks. Maybe it's Rabbi Yehuda speaking. Well, Gimel U'Shleishim Boy, he needs, on top of the 30, he needs 3 just to get it absorbed, to take root. So we're stuck. Either way, it doesn't work. Brisa spoke about 30 days. Who is speaking? It's not Reb Meir. 1 day is enough. It's not Reb Lezer. 60 days. It's not Rabbi Yosef Shimon. 45 days. 2 weeks and 30 days. It's not Rabbi Yehuda. 33 days. 3 days to take root and 30 days for the year. Elul Oigun Reb Meir says, well, you know what? Let's go back to the first option. It's Reb Meir speaking. The question was, why do you need 30 days? 1 day is sufficient to be counted as a year. Answers the Gemara, you know what? Let's relearn that Brisa. Planted at least 30 days before Rosh HaShanah, right? Not because 30 days is considered a year. No, following Reb Meir, 1 day is sufficient to count as a year. 30 days? L'klita. To get it to take root. To get it to take hold, to start growing. That's what the Brisa meant. And even Reb Meir agrees that's necessary. Before you could start counting years, you have to have a tree growing. 1 second, says the Gemara. But then 30 is not enough. You need 31. 30 to take root, plus a day to count as year 1. So you need 31 days before Rosh HaShanna. Because Savar, the Brisa holds, Yom Lamed, the 30th day, Oila Lekan, will count as the 30th day of taking root. So you have 30 days. Ulakan can also be considered the first day in the other direction, meaning it will count as the first year, applying the concept of mixed siyam kikuli. So the first portion of that day is considered like the conclusion of the 30 days of klita, of taking root. Once you have a viable tree, so this next portion of that day is considered like day 1 of growing. And Yom Yechad B'Shana, Chashav Shana, counts as year 1. There you go. So the Brisa is Reb Meir. Plant it 30 days before Rosh HaShanna, you're safe. It takes root. And then the last portion of the last day is considered like the first year of its growing series. First year of the Arla series. And then there goes year 1. And likewise when it comes to Shemitah, Rashi explains. According to Rameh, you don't need 30 days to Sefes Shvius. As long as you have that 1 day, it's 1 day away from Shemitah, that's enough to be Mekayim to Sefes Shvius, which is an interesting concept. Ramban asks on Rashi, what do you mean? Suddenly we changed our halacha? Earlier we figured you need 30 days for Tesefes Shvius. Now we decided 1 day is enough, and the Farshim explained, yeah. Because now the Gemara is working with the concept that 1 day, Yom Echad B'Shana Chashav Shana. It's Reb Meir speaking. 1 day counts like a year. A year consists of days. It's made up of yomim. Having one of those elements, experiencing one factor of that year, is having tasted that year. Halachically, it's considered like you had that year somewhat. Okay, likewise when it comes to Tesefes Shvius. If it's a day away, a day is an independent entity. It's like a year on its own. You're not connected to Shemitah. You're far away from Shemitah. You're still in Erev Shemitah. So you're not running into Tesefes Shvius. Once it takes root at that point, it's considered to have been planted before Shemitah. If you're a day away, you're away from Shemitah. You're Erev Shemitah. If it's less than that, then you're connecting to Shemitah. It's leading to Shemitah, Tesefes Shemitah. But if it's already a year away, a day away, which is like a year away, doesn't relate to Shemitah, it relates to Erev Shemitah, and you're safe. Okay, so in conclusion, how many Shittas do we have? When it comes to taking root, how long does that take? Reb Meir, Reb Lezer hold 30 days. Rabbi Shimon 14 days. Rabbi Yehuda 3 days. What is Chashav Shana? According to Reb Meir, 1 day. According to Reb Lezer, 30 days. The Brisa spoke about planting a fruit tree at least 30 days before Rosh HaShanna. Maskana of the Gemara was, it's Reb Meir speaking. You need 30 days to take root. And that 30th day, the Yom Lamed will have Mikzah Siyam Kikulei concerning Klita. It can be considered day 30 as far as taking root. And also, it can be considered that 1 day, that Yom Echad B'Shana Chashav Shana, and it's going to count as year 1 pertaining to Arla, and disconnect you from the following year of Shemitah, in which case we'll consider this to have been planted before Shemitah. And you can hold on to that tree. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Yehuda. So we have 2 shittas regarding what's considered a year. Rabbi Lezer says 30 days. According to Rabbi Meir, 1 day is enough. Rabbi Yehuda, Ushneyan Mikrecha Darshu. They're both coming from the same pasuk. Pasuk by the Mabul, which says Vayhi. Ba'achas v'sheish me'ez shana. So it was year 601 of Noach's lifetime. Barishon b'echad hachodesh, the first day of the first month. I was going to darshan the pasuk as follows: Rameir Savar. The pasuk is speaking about the first day of the first month and considering it year 601. It's barely one day into the next year. The pasuk is already referring to it as a year. It's year 601. It's just one day into that new year. It's already 601. It transitioned from 6 to 601. Shema, we learn from here. Yom Echad B'Shana Chashav Shana. One day is already counted as a year. You've already entered the next year. You've already experienced the next year enough. It's already year 601. V'idach. Rabbi Yehuda says, no, you need 30 days. What does he say with this pasuk? How does he respond to Rameir's Rasha? He says, Iksiv b'sheish me'es v'achas shana. The pasuk would say, look, it was 600 and the first year. So the word shana would be at the end. K'amris. So I understand that we see from here, one day is already considered into the next year. So if we would say it this way, b'sheish me'as v'achas shana, so shana is referring back to 601. But now the pasuk says ba'achas, and then v'sheish me'as shana. So we learn that shana, the word shana, ashesh me'as kai, is referring back to the number 600. How many years? 600. Umay achas, the word achas, which is the beginning of the pasuk, aschalta de achas kamar. Pasuk is just meaning. Pasuk means that it's the beginning of the next year. It doesn't have chashivas like a year. It's not like 601. It's year 600 still. But you've initiated, you've gone into the next year. Ba'achas, you've gone into the next year. But it's not yet considered a chashav enough. You haven't really accomplished 601 yet. Because you need a month for that. Okay, Rabbi Yehuda might time it. What's Rabbi Yehuda's reason? Where's he coming from? That 1 month is needed to be counted as a year. The pasuk, same pasuk says, Barishon be'echad hachodesh. It was the first month, be'echad hachodesh, the first of that first month. So it was the first day of that first month. Now, medakatrim echadu da'ayel b'chodesh. Since we're speaking about barely one day passing into that month, v'kakar le'chodesh, the pasuk refers to it as what? Barishon be'echad hachodesh. It's already the first month. What do you mean? It's just one day into that month. It already is considered like the month. Shema, we learn from here, experiencing one day of that new month is enough of an experience to give you a taste of that month. You're already in that month. It counts like the month. Oh, so knowing that, we're going to draw a parallel. Since we find that experiencing one day of that new month counts as the month, so when it comes to counting years, how much do you have to experience to be counted as Shana? 30 days. Why? What's the connection? So he explains. What is a month made up of? Days. You count 30 days, you end up with a month. So the building blocks of a month, the elements that make up a month, are days. How do you experience a month? By experiencing one of those days used to calculate to make up that month. So experiencing one element of those building blocks which make up that month is enough to give you that taste of the month. And likewise, when it comes to a year, how do you experience the year? Experiencing one of those elements used to make up that year. How do you make up a year? With months. So according to Rabbi Yehuda, a month will give you that taste of the year, but not less than that. You need 30 days. Says Rashi, the first wide line, we find that a month is made up of days. And likewise, when it comes to years, how do you have a year? By experiencing one of the things that are used to make up the year. Chashav Shana. And what makes up a year? Through months. Right? That was the pasuk we had over and over. Chadashim make a year, says Rabbi Yehuda. A day gives you the month, but a month is needed to get you the year. It's an interesting kasha on our sugya, because the pasuk speaking about the year 600, which turned into 601 at the top of the year, at Aleph, the first day of the first month, whenever that is, Nisan or Tishrei, whatever is considered the first month. Let's assume it's Nisan, right? So the raya is, look, it's only one day into the next year, and we already switched over. It already counts as 601. That was Rameya's raya. Now, these numbers, 601, are what? We're speaking about the years of Noach's life. Take a look at the pasuk. We're speaking about the Mabel was in the year 600 of his life. Then we have 601. We're speaking about his lifetime, how old he was. So, how do you know when his birthday was? Maybe his birthday was months ago. We speak about the first day of the first year being 601. First day of the first month being 601. Fine, Echad B'Nisan is 601 because he turned to 601 half a year ago. So maybe you need half a year to count as a year. How do you know it's one day or 1 month? So Turah Evan says, it seems clear from Al Gemara that, in fact, there's a Rashi in the beginning of Shmois who seems to say the same thing. Beginning of Kisisa. Not beginning of Shmois, beginning of Kisisa. That when it comes to the years mentioned in the Torah, even pertaining to people's lives, Avraham lived this month, we're speaking about not birthdays. Years which are determined, numbers which are determined by Shnois Olam, by the calendar years. So I'm not speaking about personal anniversary of his birth. That's one thing. Birthday is one thing. But when Torah speaks about years, it was X amount of years, L'chayei Noach, the number reflects and relates to the calendar year, which is based on the chronological years, Tishrei based or Nisan based. It's an interesting chiddush. So that's why the Gemara brings a raya from here. Look, it's only one day into the next year, and it's already considered 601. L'chayei Noach. How do we get that switch over so quickly? There's a raya from here that even one day counts as a year. Okay, so in summation, we start with a brisa. If you plant a fruit tree 30 days before Rosh HaShanna, you're safe as far as Orla. It's already counting as 1 year. You're safe as far as Shvius. We had a chiddush that the fruit actually are asa until Tu B'Shvat because it's been transitioned into a tree, in which case it gets new halachas. It acquires the Rosh Hashanah Li'lonis, Tu B'Shvat. That was an interesting side point. Then we had a Mishnah, which gave us various shittas regarding how long it takes for the new plant to take root. We have 30 days, 2 weeks, or 3 days. And we discussed the main point of the sugya, which was what's considered a shana. How much do you need experience of the new year for it to count? Rabbi Yehuda says 30 days. Rabbi Meir says 1 day is enough. That explained the brisa. It needs to be 30 days before Rosh Hashanah. Why? It's Rabbi Meir speaking. 30 days to take root, but that last day will have a double identity. Consider day 30 for taking root, and day 1 as per experience the first day of Arlo, Yamechad B'Shana Chash V'Shana. We concluded with the Makuris of Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Lezer based on a pasuk by the Mabul. According to Rabbi Meir, the fact that it's only a bit into the next year, and we already consider it as the next year, that's a raya that 1 day is called a Shana. Rabbi Lezer says no. 1 day into the next month gives you that month, because Chodesh Lemenuyav, and likewise a month of the year, you've experienced an important enough element of that year, and that gives you the halacha of Chash V'Shana. All the best to you and much, much hatzlacha.